5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Once again, everybody, happy Easter. We are a few weeks now into the Easter season, but today on the show, we want to back up a little bit and talk about kind of a small detail that in the final days of Passion Week, Holy Week, in the early days of Easter, we forget about. Sometimes we wonder about, but what's going on here? And that is what happened to Jesus between his death on the cross and his resurrection early on Easter Sunday morning? Where was he? What was he doing? That's what we're going to be talking about today on Ignition. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Dr. Chris Bergwald, and we want to set your faith ablaze so that you might live the adventure that comes from a relationship with Jesus Christ. Before we get into today's topic, we want you to know that we love listener feedback. So if you've got questions about today's episode, or if you have ideas for future episodes, please contact us. The easiest way to do so is by email, and the address is
ignition@sfcatholic.org. Ignition@sfcatholic.org.
Very well said, Robyn. So that's my co-host for today, Robyn Bruggeman, who's in studio. And speaking of listener feedback, this topic is because it's a listener request. We take requests here on Ignition.
That's right.
So this is, and I mentioned this a few weeks ago because there was some praise for Robyn and my other regular co-host, Renee Kranz. So this was the topic for today. Again, going kind of back a little bit, a few weeks to the events, what happened between Jesus' death on the cross and then his resurrection. What was going on then? So proposed this to you, and you thought this would be a great one for us to talk about.
That's a great idea.
So I thought what we could do is we could read the email.
Yep.
We will, let's see, I got to make sure. I don't want Elise broadcasting email addresses or names. Fold this up a little bit so it's confidential. Anonymity, just so that everybody knows, because I think, I'm kind of joking here. I'm sure our correspondent would be fine with me mentioning their name. What else do you want? Correspondent? Do you not like correspondent?
That. That's why I started laughing.
I know.
Shout out to the person that requested this and wrote in.
Exactly.
Because you love listener feedback.
We do love listener feedback. But we do keep it anonymous unless somebody says, feel free to use my name.
Yep.
Just do.
Because we're professional people.
Because we are professionals here on Ignition,
That's right.
as is evident in every single episode. Thank you, Mrs. Bruggeman. Hi, Dr. Chris, Renee, and Robyn. Thank you for your podcast. My husband and I really enjoy listening. Robyn and Renee are both wonderful co-hosts, and I hope they both continue to share the role because I learned from both of them. We were watching The Passion of the Christ, so Mel Gibson's movie, from 2004 now, almost 20 years old. We were watching The Passion of the Christ early this week. So this was, we got the email on Good Friday, Good Friday. So earlier during Holy Week, we were watching The Passion of the Christ early this week and had a question about the end of the movie. When Jesus dies on the cross, there is an earthquake and a big storm in the movie. Is there any historical evidence that these things happened? I was wondering if you could do an episode on what happened after Jesus died, but before the resurrection. May God bless you all on this Good Friday and the Easter celebration to come. Thanks again. Thank you for writing in. Again, just protecting your anonymity in case it matters. But so Robyn, I thought, okay, it'd probably make most sense in one way to address this next year. Like in the episode before. But I don't want to make her wait. I don't want to make them wait that long. And we're still in the Easter season, so it's still relatively fresh in our minds. Yeah. So I thought that we could address this question. Again, is there the earthquake and the storm in the movie? Is there any historical evidence that these things happened? Could you do an episode what happened after Jesus died before the resurrection? So that's what we're going to talk about today. Fun fact, as we're recording this, which is not too much before folks will be listening to or watching it. Actually, I just remembered this. Early this week, I had a dream with Mel Gibson in it.
You did?
I did, and I don't remember. I asked him, "So are you still doing that resurrection movie?" Because the rumors are that did you know this? No. That Jim Caviezel, who played Jesus, said that a year or two ago that Gibson is working on the screenplay for a resurrection movie. Yeah. Right. So in the dream, so are you still gonna do that? He's like, no.
Oh no.
What?
Do you
and
think
then I
you
woke
can
up and I was
believe
happy it
your
was just a
dream?
dream. Well, I hope this one doesn't come through.
Okay.
True.
Well, it really did leave it like there could be the ending of the last one. So.
Yeah, totally. So, yeah. And just a little bit more. What's that?
That's funny that he was in your dream.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Do you watch, just real quick, so she mentioned how they watch, I don't know if she said they do it every year, but earlier this year during Holy Week, they watch The Passion of the Christ. Do you make that part of your own traditions as a family?
We do. Generally, we watch it on Good Friday. We alternate it with The Risen. So before that came out, we watched it every year on Good Friday. The kids had to be old enough to watch it. We just kind of decided when they switched from being littles to being able to handle that, or we would just show them different scenes of it. So we do. Truthfully, I quite often fall asleep. I'm getting it to be an older mom, so I don't always make it to the end. It's kind of a long movie. So I did rewatch scenes, though, knowing that we were going to record on this. But yeah, it's kind of a regular at our house.
Gotcha. I saw it. I was with the Diocese back when it came out, and we organized a couple of showings in Sioux Falls at the movie theater. And so I saw it twice when it first came out. Actually, three times.
In the theaters?
3 times in the theaters.
Wow.
In the theater. And then I think I've only been able to watch it from beginning to end once since then. So 3 times in the theater when it came out, but I'm pretty sure only once.
I think it's something that it's so good to see. It is such a good movie. And when I saw it in the movie theaters, I was so glad I was watching it. And Mel Gibson just did an incredible job making that film. But I remember walking out saying to Spike, I don't ever want to see that ever again.
Yeah.
Because it just got me to the core, but in just a weird way. And then, interestingly enough, when it came out on DVD, we bought it. And then I was like, I want to see it again. But then when I was watching the clips leading up to today, I had the same feeling of, I can't hardly watch it.
Yep.
So
it's
intense.
It is. This year, normally I watch parts of it. This year, actually, I didn't watch. I didn't avoid it on purpose. It just, my Holy Week came and went really quickly.
But knowing you're such a movie enthusiast that it stays fresh in your mind, doesn't it?
It does.
See, me, I have to rewatch stuff and be but you, Mr. Movies.
Mr. Movies. That's what they call me around the office, Mr. Movies.
So, anyways, did the violent earthquake really happen?
So to dive into the question, when Jesus dies on the cross, in the movie, there's an earthquake and a big storm. Is there any historical evidence that these things happened? So yes, specifically Matthew's gospel, which we heard from on Palm Sunday this year. So we got Matthew's account of Jesus' passion and death. And at the end of Matthew's account of the passions, this is Matthew, turn back. This is Matthew chapter 27. We'll just kind of pick up. So verse 45 and following is the death of Jesus. Now from the 6th hour, there was darkness over all the land until the 9th hour. So darkness. So what that was, could have been an eclipse, could have been heavy cloud cover. So could have been a storm. And about the 9th hour, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. That is, my God, why have you forsaken me? And some of the bystanders hearing it said, this man is calling Elijah. One of them at once ran, took a sponge, filled it with vinegar, put it on a reed, and gave it to him to drink. But the other said, wait, let us see whether Elijah will come to save him. And Jesus cried again with a loud voice and yielded up his spirit. Verse 51, and behold, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom, and the earth shook, and the rocks were split.
There we go. So
Matthew gives us explicit reference to the earth shook, so an earthquake.
Yeah.
Violent enough that, according to Matthew's testimony at least, that there were rocks that were split. Whatever exactly that means. Yeah. But yes, at least one of the Gospels. And to be honest, Mark doesn't have it. I don't know that Luke or John, I didn't check Luke or John before we started recording, but Matthew at least does make reference to an earthquake. The storm, I don't know that there's explicit reference in Matthew, and I don't think there is in the other three either. There's not reference to a storm, but again, as I mentioned, it's dark, so that could have indicated...
Makes you think.
That it possibly could have been a storm. There's a lot of things, whether it's The Passion of the Christ or The Chosen, the series. You guys are watching that as well. I'm a big fan of both the movie, The Passion of the Christ, and The Chosen. But what the creators, with both of those, as with any historical or any dramatization of historical events, you have to fill in some gaps with artistic creativity. Yeah. So Mel Gibson, obviously, if you watch the movie, not everything that he portrays is found in the Gospels. He takes some artistic license. He's drawing from some devotional materials and other sources. That similar things are done in The Chosen, for example. So it's not, we don't take it... pun intended, I guess, everything as gospel truth, because it's not all explicitly referred to. So in the movie, there is an earthquake, which is mentioned, and there's a pretty intense storm that's not explicitly mentioned in the Gospels. That could have happened, for sure. As I mentioned, that darkness could have been cloud cover, but we don't know. We don't know, in fact, that there was an intense storm. We do, taking Matthew's account, we do know there was an earthquake, if nothing else. So
the temple being torn.
The veil,
Or the veil of the temple. So can you explain that more?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked, Robyn, and I didn't prompt you to ask, Robyn. So this is the veil that separates the Holy of Holies from the holy place. So in the temple, this actually goes all the way back to the tabernacle, which God instructed in detail Moses to construct back at Mount Sinai, so like 1,400 years before Jesus, give or take. God gives Moses explicit instructions, detailed instructions on how to construct the meeting tent, the tabernacle where the people are to worship God while they're traveling through the desert from Mount Sinai to the Promised Land. Ends up being 40 years. And then they go into the Promised Land, and a few centuries later, Solomon, the son of David, wise King Solomon, constructs a temple. So there had been this tabernacle, which was basically portable, and you could set it up and take it down based on the instructions God gave to Moses. Well, Solomon fulfills the desire of his father, King David, to build a permanent structure for the Lord. So Solomon's temple, it was an incredible, magnificent temple, ornate, all sorts of precious metals. Same structure as the tabernacle. I'll get to the structure in a little bit. That was destroyed by the Babylonians when they conquered Jerusalem in 586 BC. And a couple centuries later, the Jewish people rebuilt the temple. That's called the Second Temple period because it's the Second Temple. Wasn't quite as glorious as Solomon's, but it was the temple nonetheless. Same structure as Solomon's temple, same structure as the tabernacle. And this Second Temple, built in the 500s BC, about 516 is when it was finished. That temple is the one that Jesus would have known when he went to Jerusalem. So it was still standing over 500 years later when Jesus becomes a man, grows up.
That's amazing.
Yep.
The cathedral's like 100.
What?
Our cathedral.
Oh,
like
yeah,
100.
exactly. Right,
That's amazing
right.
that something's 500 years
So the structure of the tabernacle in both temples was you had an outer court that was called the temple, and then you had the holy place where only priests, so Levitical priests, they were the ones who could go in there, and there were different things. That's where the menorah was, the golden lampstand. That's where different sacred vessels, tables were. The bread of the presence was kept. And then the most sacred place was the Holy of Holies. That was also veiled off with a thick curtain, like a 6-inch curtain. And only the high priest went in there, and he only went in there once a year. And that's where the Ark of the Covenant was kept. the Ark of the Covenant, which also God instructed in detail to Moses how to build it. The Ark had the manna from the desert, the Ten Commandments from Moses, and Aaron, the high priest, Aaron's staff. All were kept in that. And that's where the glory cloud, the glory of the Lord, dwelt on the Ark of the Covenant, which is in the Holy of Holies, which is in the holy place, which is part of the tabernacle/temple structure.
That's incredible.
So, back to your question, which you asked like half an hour ago at this point.
At least.
The veil torn in two that Matthew refers to, the other Gospels also refer to the veil. That's the temple around the holy place. So the temple that marks off the place where only the high priest is supposed to enter, that curtain, that veil, was torn in two.
So is that on the Passion?
Yes, that's also.
Yeah, because Spike and I were like stopping it, rewinding it, and he's like, let's see if there's there's a veil that you can actually.
Well, actually,
see.
I don't know that the veil was, but you do see the destruction of the
it,
temple.
Split down
Yes.
the center, and then
Yep.
crack off
And
or whatever,
some of the members of the Sanhedrin, the high priest, I think, is
he's,
like, what
standing there,
happened?
in shock. And,
Right. Yep.
Spike thinks he did see a veil.
Okay, I can't remember.
It's very light. Have you seen it? Well, now you're going to go back and. But anyways, it doesn't really matter. But that's fascinating. So fascinating.
And so what part of what that's portraying is, or maybe largely what that's portraying, is how in the new covenant that Jesus establishes, everybody who is part of the new family of God, the new people of God, which happens by virtue of our baptism, in which we are joined to Jesus Christ. We're joined to Jesus, who is King, who is prophet, but he's also the high priest. So we participate in his priesthood, and therefore we are able to offer sacrifices.
Yeah.
My suffering, physical, emotional, mental pain, anguish of having to record ignition, for example, the great suffering. So we're able to offer those things up because I am baptized into Christ Jesus, and therefore I'm able to make these spiritual sacrifices. So the ability to make sacrifices is no longer reserved to the Levitical priesthood. It's part of the common baptismal priesthood of every baptized follower of Jesus Christ.
That's really something.
Yeah. So it's
It
pretty.
really is.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, but that's all just up to when he dies.
Yes.
And our correspondent. And what do you want? Our emailer?
Your listener.
Oh, yeah. Well, but
Or
what if they view?
Listener, viewer.
But they corresponded with
Yes.
us.
Anyways, but on to their next question, which is so cool and so important to address.
Well, I was wondering if you could do an episode on what happened after Jesus died, but before the resurrection.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about that next. But if we're just tuning in, welcome to Ignition. I'm your host, Dr. Chris Bergwald, talking today with Robyn Bruggeman, answering a question that another listener/viewer, correspondent, sent in, asking about some of the details from the movie The Passion of the Christ at the end of Jesus' life, storm and earthquake as he dies. And then do we know anything about what happens afterwards? So, Robyn, I know that this is something that you're fascinated with because it's something that you kind of knew about but never really thought about
I don't know that I knew it until, I don't know. Well, for sure not till after I was Catholic.
Okay.
And then it was, I would say in the last 10 years that I went, oh, wait a second. And then every year I go, oh, that's right. That's Holy Saturday.
That's what that means.
Is mind-blowing.
Exactly. So there's this line in the Apostles' Creed, which is the shorter version, and Catholics are not the only ones who profess the Apostles' Creed. Many Christians do. You grew up. Okay, so great. So there is a line in the Apostles' Creed which reads, he descended into hell. On the third day, he rose again. He descended into hell.
And I, as a kid growing up Protestant, always wondered, why did he do that?
Right.
Like, did he do that? What does that mean?
Right.
Like, weird.
Right. So this is addressing what happens because the way this is, it's one of those.
You're looking in the Catechism of the Catholic Church.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Yes, I'm looking at the Catechism of the Church.
That's what Chris is referring to.
But right before, Jesus suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, died, and was buried is the previous article of the Apostles'
setting
Creed.
it up so we know that that's what happened in the days when he's in, well, we think he's just in the tomb, but he's a little bit busy.
So
he's not just in the tomb.
Did he disappear from the tomb? Is he not in the tomb?
How did he do that?
Is he in the tomb? Is it in the tomb?
I don't know. Is he?
I asked you first.
I don't know the answer, Dr. Bergwald.
Elise, this never happens on Ignition.
It's a good question.
Was Jesus in the tomb or not?
Like, did he have to leave to go do what he did, the big thing on Holy Saturday?
I'm just going to say, like, yes, because it was empty.
Wait, so he left?
When did it get empty?
When did it get empty?
Yeah. These are big questions.
Either no one knows or you're going to tell me the answer, right?
Correct.
So no one actually knows.
No. Well.
Do they? Do you know? Of course, Dr. B knows.
I think now you've confused. The tables have been turned. So, Jesus dies. He's buried in the tomb. A massive rock, and it stays that way until Easter late Saturday nights, aka Sunday morning, when angel comes down, rock gets rolled away, and that's when Jesus is no longer in the tomb.
But time is different.
No.
No, it's not.
No.
Are you sure?
What were you going to say just a minute ago? I know this is unfair because it's hard because you're not on mic, but you were looking at me quizzically as I was saying.
Quizzically is the word for the show.
Well, because I don't know. I was like, but maybe I was overthinking it in the sense of like, was the rock moved, but people because they were praying there, right?
The women come to anoint.
But the soldiers were there.
Body.
Oh yeah. Okay. Oh, interesting. I never really thought about that.
So Jesus's body is in the tomb until
So it's
Easter.
more like the spirit. Oh gosh.
Go ahead,
sorry.
Robyn. Just go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm just
Continue.
I'm just so
Stealing my
interested.
thunder.
Hurry up. We only have like 5 minutes left. Let's go.
I'm trying.
No pressure. Because we can't leave people hanging. Where is Jesus?
That's how I feel.
God, tell us, Dr. B. Tell us.
As I just said, his body's in the tomb, but to be a human being, and Jesus became fully man, we are not just bodies. We're also we're embodied souls. We're ensouled bodies. Jesus' soul is in Sheol. When Jesus dies, his soul goes to Sheol.
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 Tell me what that is again.
Okay, so I'm waiting for you. Sheol is the biblical word for what the Apostles' Creed calls here hell.
Okay, so it is HE double hockey stick. I was right.
Yes, we can say hell in this context.
I know. I remember I'm a mom of littles. Okay, anyways.
So there are. The New Testament speaks about the abode of the dead, where the righteous went. Peter talks about this in one of his letters. Where the righteous were while they were away. So before Jesus comes, nobody can go to heaven.
Heaven has not been opened
Heaven's
yet.
not been opened.
Right.
Jesus has to come to make up for Adam and Eve's fall.
Yep.
The original sin and all the sins. But there are people who will not go to hell of the damned. Right. So they're in this other spiritual state.
Holding place.
The holding place. Like the waiting room. It's more like it's a waiting room.
The real waiting room.
You know, that you get that music going. And
so they are waiting for
Jesus.
Easter.
They're waiting for Easter. They're waiting for the resurrection. So there's a beautiful, Eastern Christians, so Eastern Orthodox, Eastern Catholics, a beautiful iconographic tradition. So icons that are called the harrowing of hell. And I have goosebumps right now because these icons show Jesus in the abode of the dead, Sheol, hell not of the damned, but waiting room, hell. And Jesus is reaching down and taking.
Like reaching up?
Sometimes, yes.
I just saw
but Jesus is taking someone, or sometimes two specifically, by the hand. Do you know who they are?
Oof. No.
Our first parents.
I was just going to say, is it Adam and Eve?
Adam and Eve,
That's what
who
my
have been
guess
waiting.
But
centuries, thousands of years.
Wow.
Maybe tens of thousands of years. Who knows exactly the timeline? For their redemption.
Yeah. Wow.
So finally, now this is where time. Okay, yes. After death, time is different. But Jesus' body in the tomb, like his body's in the tomb
really-
for when it's put in the tomb. The rest of Friday, all day Saturday, his
Easter
body's in
Sunday,
the
so
tomb.
3 days.
But his soul. His human soul, he has a human soul. His soul has gone to the abode of the dead to free those souls so that once his body is resurrected, once he is resurrected,
Then they go.
then they can enter
to
into heaven.
and then everybody's one.
Yep.
There,
So all
yeah.
those all those righteous people from before Jesus came, their souls have been waiting for the Savior to come, and now He has freed them from the abode of the dead, not hell of the damned, but where these righteous souls where they've been waiting.
Yeah. So this is where like Jesus' resurrection then opens the gates
Yep,
of heaven.
exactly.
For all of us.
Yep.
But had to go back in time to get all the people
So to
that
speak, right?
have deserved to go to heaven.
Yep.
And get everybody reunited and up to speed.
Right,
Up to time.
up to speed, yep.
Up to time. So it's really amazing.
It is.
So like, it reminds me of real quick. We went to Holy Thursday to the repose masses or whatever, and happened to run into Father Tony at
The
our
altars
last
of repose?
one.
Is that what
The
you mean?
altars of repose, and he said, "Now remember, Jesus." Something about how a priest had told him something like, "Remember, Jesus is still in the tomb," and I wish I
Not on
would've-
Holy Thursday.
No. No, you're right. But there was something he had said to remember, or the garden. So he's in the garden then, and then what's going to come next. So yeah, I said that wrong. But it made me think how, yes, so if you just walk yourself through the Triduum, what's happening.
Yeah, yes.
And then get to Holy Saturday. So I just butchered what I was going to say. So forget that because we're out of time. But if you think on Holy Saturday, we're like so close to Easter,
Yes.
but it's like, wait, something so important happened on like in that time window that we just can't gloss over because
Yep.
it's incredible that God didn't leave all those other people out
Yep.
until, just saying, oh, Jesus died. He rose again. Heaven's opened. Good for all of you now going forward. But he's like, no, I didn't forget about all of you other people.
Exactly.
So it's so beautiful.
Amen.
Holy Saturday has a lot going on.
Amen. It has a lot going on. And that's why, even though it's not Lent, it still has that somber tone because the resurrection hasn't happened yet. So it's still a penitential day, and many people spend it sort of quietly, just in light of that
Yeah,
spirit.
yeah.
So I do want to mention the Catechism, paragraph 631 through 637. It's just a couple pages. And the Catechism gives some of the church's teaching on this. But Robyn, thanks for being here today. And folks, that will wrap up this episode. Again, you can email us, ignition@sfcatholic.org, with your own questions or ideas for future episodes. Until next time, may God bless you.